Thank you very much, and for coming out on a kind of a miserable night. And I'll try not to put you to sleep. But I just, full disclosure, I am far from being an expert on history of anything. In terms of the Waterdown Legion, Valerie and I moved out here in 2009, and we've got involved in the community and also with the Legion. But like many of us, I regret that, I didn't have more chats with my father, my mother, my grandfather and grandmother, and aunts and uncles, and learn a little bit. And in the case of the Legion, I regret I wasn't able to do that, because there are a lot of stories about the Waterdown Legion. Getting involved with the archives, I was quite just amazed at how much great work is done by such a small group of folks, very dedicated folks. When I went to look for history at the Legion, there's very little there. So what I'd like to do is maybe use this as a start tonight to encourage people, if they have information or artifacts that they're willing to share or let us copy, we'll start putting together a book of history that will stay at the Legion and be available for people to view. And we'll do a backup with the archives. So what I'd like to do is spend a little bit of time, talk about the history of the Royal Canadian Legion, and also a little history of the Waterdown Legion, and then talk a little bit about the Legion today, what's going on at the Legion today. So in World War I, we had citizen soldiers. And by the way, other than two very brief periods in our history, we've always staffed our military with volunteers. There was a short period in World War I and a short period in World War II where they had conscription. Other than that, it's always been people that were volunteered, stood up and said, here I am, I'll sign on the dotted line and give you everything that I've got. And that's held through for all of our military history. One thing too we often forget about is that when somebody's serving in the military, it's very much a family affair. The families go through much of the sacrifice that the soldier, sailor, airman, airwoman go through. They miss birthdays, they miss graduations, there's all sorts of things. I remember when I deployed to Cyprus in '64, we left in a hurry almost overnight, and it was a 3-month mandate. And after we were there for 3 months, the Minister of National Defense came over and said, I got good news and I got bad news. The bad news is they've extended the mandate. The good news is that if they extend it again, we'll pull you out and bring in fresh troops. And that was a big sigh of relief for the married members that were over there, because at the time, the United Nations Emergency Force in Gaza was for a year. So they just upped and left. And you imagine leaving your spouse and your children to fend for themselves for a year. So it worked out okay. After World War I, the Great War, there were a lot of vets groups that sprang up. The largest one was the Great War Veterans Association of Canada. And in fact, through them, the poppy was adopted as the symbol of remembrance. Bear with me here, I got a wonky. Oh, well, we'll try it this way. There we go, go to plan B. So they had a unity convention in Winnipeg in 1925, and it was under the leadership of Field Marshal Earl Haig, and he was the Grand President of the British Legion. At that meeting, they drew up a constitution, and they officially incorporated the Legion, then known as the British Empire Service League, Canadian Legion, in 1926. So we're coming up next year, will be our 100th anniversary. They received royal designation, stayed that name until 1961, when Queen Elizabeth II gave royal designation. It became the Royal Canadian Legion. My mouse quit. So the fundamental pillars, if you like, of the Royal Canadian Legion are promoting remembrance, supporting veterans, and supporting youth. And we're so lucky in Waterdown because we've got a large building and large property that we can really go out there and be part of the hub of the community, if you like. And there's so many events that happen at the Legion that I'll share with you in a moment. So they started off Branch 551, Royal Canadian Legion Waterdown, in 1954 in the back of Bert Klut's barbershop. They had 17 members. The photo on your right, it's an artist's rendition of what the building looked like around that time, and you'll notice that it was one story. It's now a two-story building, and it's kind of gone back to its original roots because it's the Ritz barbershop. They were aided by provincial officers and the presidents of the Dundas and the Burlington Legion. And the officers, first officers of Branch 551, the president was Harold Place, the vice was Horace Kendrick, secretary Jay Schmuck, treasurer Roy Clote, the chaplain was the Reverend W.S. Noble, Sergeant at Arms Dave Brush, and then they had executive members Percy Morrison, Fred Sheridan, Robert Henry, F. Dickerson, and Bruce Weatherall. So your dad was one of the originals. No. Escape, where are you? You okay there? Let's see what happens. Now we're going. Super. Technology's grand when it works. So 1956 was a big year. They opened their first location, their first Legion building in the Quonset hut, and that officially opened in September of 1956, and it was at the corner of Cedar and Hamilton Streets, and many of you will know that it later became Mortimer Meats. They had a large club room, but it was for men only. The ladies were only allowed in on Fridays if they were escorted. How things have changed, for the good. They had 92 members. That evening, they had a gala with 400 people in attendance, and also the Ladies Auxiliary started at the same time. And they were continuing to grow. In 1957. They hosted the district annual convention with 250 delegates. And for their meetings, they held them at the Waterdown High School. This would have been quite a large undertaking for a small branch, because there's lots to organize when you put together a convention of this type. They held a parade with pipe bands, brass band, and the Waterdown High School bugle band and majorettes. And they had a big dance on Saturday and then a remembrance service on Sunday. Growing more, 1964, they held a ceremony where they initiated 76 new members. Wouldn't that be nice if we could do that today? The president, Van de Waal, said, "You are now members of an organization which is unique in that it is based upon a common sacrifice. It has to offer comradeship only and asks of its members service not for self, but for those of our comrades or their dependents that are in need or in distress." Excellent words to live by then and today. They now had, in 1975, 450 members, and they had a dream to build a new Legion. The construction started in August of 1975 for a 20,000 square foot building. The Ladies Auxiliary numbered 65 at that time, and the plan was to have washrooms on both floors, a large hall on the second floor for community rentals, kitchens on both floors, and most important, a modern bar. The bar apparently in the old Quonset hut was left a lot to be desired. It was their 20th anniversary since the original facilities in the Quonset hut. And this was January 1976. They were looking at cost estimates of $600,000 to build that size of a building. Imagine what it would cost today. and the construction was well underway. The official opening was the same time as new facilities for Flamborough Municipal Office. At this point, the costs had increased a little bit, and they came in at a final cost of $840,000. The Minister of Veterans Affairs, Dan J. McDonald, was present, and he cut the ribbon. His brother, Walter, and sister-in-law, Mildred, were members of the Waterdown Legion. Some of the members went out on a limb to guarantee the mortgage. And in September 1987, they had a mortgage burning ceremony. And that's left us in good shape because there are a lot of legions around the country that are saddled with big mortgages on their back, and it's pretty difficult for them to really do the work that they'd like to do in the community. This was the new building, same as it is today. I'm not sure what the date was this was taken, but it looks like it was shortly after it opened. But look at all the vacant land behind. There was nothing there. The vision at the time, and it holds true today, that the facilities would be a community hub. This was a cenotaph, and some of you may remember these gentlemen, left to right: Stan DeGraff, George Ellsgood, Morley Gray, Hugh Peer, and John Bully. And we have now added Afghanistan and peacekeeping on the memorial. We'd like to make some changes in the future, and we've already started to put a small group together to start thinking about it. Perhaps change the landscaping and have some benches where people can sit by the cenotaph. You remember seeing this at the cenotaph. We've now moved it back closer to the building, but it's a 40-millimeter anti-aircraft gun. It was Swedish design, but manufactured at Otis Fensom elevator plant in Hamilton. Does that sound like something that may be going on here today with an airplane? That was mainly mounted on ships, but also on land. And I can remember we go over to England often, and you'll be walking out the downs and find a concrete pad. And that's where they had Bofor guns for shooting the German aircraft down. One of our members, Chris Evans, he's a retired artillery warrant officer, and he shared with me that when they moved to Lahr, Germany, on the airbase, they brought some of these Bofor guns out of mothballs. And nobody serving had any idea how to sort of organize them, set them up. And they pulled out of retirement, retired regimental sergeant major, and he came over to Germany to set the guns up for them. We're also very fortunate to have a local military vehicle collector, Alan Bott, and Alan graciously loans us his vehicles whenever we ask for them on special occasions. This is an M113 armored personnel carrier, and Alan has also recently acquired a World War II Sherman tank. And our dream is to see it one day on our cenotaph or a special event. He may get a little bit of flack from the Hamilton police when he moves it from his property out in the country and drives it into Waterdown. It's quite a piece. So our main job at the Legion is helping veterans, and we have service officers located in each branch, and we have them at zone, at district, and also at the provincial level. At the provincial level, they're actually paid employees. They work very close with a group of lawyers, and they're kind of unique because the federal government pays them to fight the federal government. So they act free of charge as advocates for a veteran when they're having difficulties with Veterans Affairs, and they're there to represent the veteran, not the government. We can also tap into different sources, for example, the Ontario Soldiers Aid benefit funds, and also our POPI funds. And one group that we're able to help, we have allied veterans that are members of the Legion and out in the community, and they often don't get very much support from the country that they serve with. So we're able to help them out, not through Veterans Affairs, but we can do things for them with our POPI fund and benevolent funds. The first Friday of each month, we have a vets coffee time, and it's just an informal setting for the vets to come and get together, and we're starting to see that grow. And there's a big effort to get homeless veterans off the street. They started going back probably about 8 years ago, doing surveying some of the homeless people on the streets of the more larger cities like Toronto and Hamilton and Vancouver. And they would ask them, are you a veteran? And that was the wrong question to ask, because a lot of veterans don't consider themselves to be veterans. So the question they ask now, have you ever served in the Canadian Armed Forces? And that will get the response that you need to be able to help them. It's very challenging. I've talked to service officers that are working right on the ground level, and some just don't want help. They're on the street. They're at rock bottom. They're not ready to accept any help, even to the point of having them sign forms where they put a claim through Veterans Affairs, and they won't sign it. They just walk away. So it's a real challenge, and it's a real challenge for us in society in general, not only for veterans, but for all homeless people. And this group of people are Ladies Auxiliary, and Tina Turner's words in her song, they're simply the best. We have a small, real dedicated group of Ladies Auxiliary. They do all kinds of wonderful things for the Legion. Profits that they make from catering, they donate it back to the Legion to help us with our programs. If we have a fallen comrade, and by the way, I should mention that the Legion helps all veterans, whether they're a member of the Legion or not. Any veteran comes through the door, they're going to get help. And so if we have a fallen comrade, if the family wants, we'll organize a Legion service. And then the Ladies Auxiliary will provide food, and we'll hold a reception for family and friends following the service. And I can't say enough about the terrific work they do. Sports is a big thing in the Legion. We have very active sports, dart leagues. If you come in on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday night, you'll see people playing darts, pool competitions, washer toss, cards, horseshoes. And then if one of our teams go on and they win, then we get to host the next event, which is kind of good because it brings some revenue back to our branch. We also support youth. We support two cadet units, 735 Firebird Squadron in Dundas, and also the Argyle and Sutherland Highlanders cadets. And we support them financially, but they also support us. They come and help us with our Poppy campaign. They help us for our remembrance services. And so a lot of what we do, it's interesting. We do something, but it comes back. And isn't that always the way? What happens if you put out a hand? 99% of the time, one will come back. And that's really what it's all about. That's Frank Jarmuth. I don't know if any of you know Frank from Waterdown Plumbing. Frank won the provincial horseshoe championship. Unfortunately, we can't bring it back because we don't have horseshoe pits. But what we've done is we've collaborated with the Legion in Acton, and we're going to share the proceeds for the day with the Acton Legion. And this is a Sabres group that we sponsor. Again, they come out, the fathers and the hockey players, and they'll help us set up or take down for big events. So it's really, really a community effort. In 2017, for the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Vimy Ridge, we held a service in our parking lot, and we also were able to come across a Vimy oak tree. These Vimy oak trees, there was a young lieutenant by the name of Leslie Miller in World War I, and after the Battle of Vimy Ridge, he came across a fallen oak tree. He harvested the acorns, sent them back to his family in Scarborough, Ontario, and they planted them. After the war, he came back and his father gave him 25 acres, and they replanted the oak trees on the 25 acres, and they're still there today. So the original plan was to take clippings from them and then they graft them, and it was all done by NVK Nurseries just out near us, and they were going to send them over to England or to France, and the French said, "Oh, sorry, we can't take them. We're afraid of you bringing some disease into France." They've skinned the cat another way now. They actually grew the trees in France. But there was a lot of these trees available, and they made them available for legions and for community groups. So we were able to get a hold of one, and we were tickle pink. One of the guys that helped us is Bob McTaggart, and Bob helped us when we had our ceremonies for the 100th anniversary of Vimy Ridge. And that carried on because at the time he said, do you know what? Why don't you get involved in Red Friday? So in 2018, we held our first Red Friday event. And if you see the gentleman on the end of the flag with the World War I uniform, that's Bob McTaggart. He's quite a character. He's the president of the 4th Canadian Mounted Rifles, which after World War I became the Governor General's Horse Guards. So it started off when we deployed troops to Afghanistan, and two wives said, we got to do something to let people understand and recognize the importance of our troops being deployed. And they started encouraging people to wear red on Fridays. It went along quite well. When we got out of Afghanistan, it kind of died off for a couple of years, but then they brought it back again, and they brought it back to include first responders, which was really a good move because, you know, if the role that first responders play in protecting us. And by the way, many first responders are also military veterans. A lot of them, that might be a full-time firefighter or a full-time policeman, but at night they're with an Army unit, an Air Force unit, or a Navy unit. So Mark, 5th of June, 2026, that will be our 6th event. And what we do is we invite the military, first responders, cadets, history groups to set up displays on the parking lot, and we say to the community, come on out and say thank you, meet and say thank you to the people that look after you 24/7. The horses are always quite popular, the police horses. Also the paramedics, they'll take the children, put them on the stretcher and wheel them into the ambulance, and it's a very enjoyable day. This year, we had a young student come up and suggest, why don't we try a passport system, where when people come in, we'll give them a passport, and they can get them stamped when they go and visit all of the different displays. And if they get a fully stamped passport, we'll put it in for a draw. And we had some of the businesses in the community generously donate prizes that we were able to draw. So it really worked out. We also have Red Friday shirts. They're very reasonable price, $25. If you're interested in wearing red on Friday, we can help you. One of the other programs we started a couple of years ago is a banner program, and we presently have 23 banners, and we've got 3 more in the works. The first year, the BIA helped us and we put them up on the hydro poles. But it becomes a problem. It's very expensive. And a lot of communities are really struggling now because they have to go back to the people and say, yeah, thanks, you paid for your banner, but we got to ask you for $50 or $100 every year to put them up and take them down. And we didn't want to get into that. We had the AM Flamborough Rotary Club approach us and say, we've got some funding, we can help. And so we were able to put poles up on both sides of the cenotaph. And the beauty of that is we've got control over it. We can put them up ourselves, take them down. We can do it more than once a year. And we do. We're going to have them up for Red Friday. There's actually communities that have been doing it for a year on the hydro poles. There was one community in Nova Scotia, and they just came to them and said, no, you can't do that anymore. So they're scrambling now to find a solution. Very important time on our calendar is Remembrance Day. And this year it was very well attended. We had a lot of children. We also had the Museum of Hope open, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But we have government, community groups, individuals place wreaths, and then following the service, we have a reception inside. Also, Fortino's generously put together beautiful cakes. The bakers love doing it, and they provide them free of charge. They decorate them with poppies and with the theme for that year. This year we had for our lawn signs, a motorcyclist all from the Corps that I served in, the Canadian Provost Corps, during the liberation of Holland with some young Dutch children around. So they transformed that onto the cakes. They're just a work of art. And we're also fortunate, we cut the ribbon for our veterans crosswalks. Our son Andy came to me a couple of years ago and he said, "Dad, I've seen these crosswalks. They're beautiful. Why can't we do it in Waterdown?" So we put a plan together. We took it forward to Ted Meekin's Community Council, and they unanimously approved the funding. Initially, we were just going to have one across Hamilton Street, but then the city came back and said, "No, we can do two. We can also do White Oak." So they came through for us. We had them installed before our remembrance service. Ted shared with me that he's had over 1,000 emails from people with thumbs up, that, you know, they really, really appreciate it. We also have a group near and dear to my heart, Legion Riders. My father was a motorcycle police officer in Westmount, Montreal, and I think that got into my blood too, because when I was 15, I had my first motorcycle. I'm lucky, I'm still fortunate enough I can ride. The Legion Riders group, the one on the right, for a few years now, in September, we're invited over to Alexander Place, and they bring the residents out, and we're able to interact with them. They also bring some old cars out, and it's always a great night. So we do it as a show and shine, and then we go back to the Legion after and have some pizza and give out the prizes 1, 2, and 3 for the best bikes. My son also organizes a ride every month, and this one we finished up for lunch at Turkey Point, but we go out for 2.5-hour ride out in the country. We stay off the main roads because we encourage the guys, bring your old stuff out. You know, we're not going to go at any high speeds here. And it's always a great day. My son's also always organized a trip. I'm going with him in May to Croatia for a good ride. Looking forward to that. So over a long period of time, Bob Lalone, Sylvia, and Bob Ray, they have done outstanding work to gather information covering the men and women from Flamborough that served in World War I. And at the moment, we have about 775 files for people that served from Flamborough. And their work was pretty hard. When they started, the military records weren't available, but they, through privacy, and now they've opened that up. Unfortunately, we can't get into World War II yet, and we probably won't be able to until that they follow the same course around 2040 before we can get at them. They also had help from Professor Jonathan Vance and the students, Waterdown District High School, and others, including students that work at archives in the summertime. So we're close on the World War I. We're hoping to have an honor roll soon, but it'll have to be something that's flexible, because we keep thinking that we've got all the names, and then all of a sudden another one pops up, and we want to make sure that nobody's missed. Because all of the different memorials that are around, cenotaphs and plaques, a lot of them missed quite a few people. And, you know, they went with the information they had in 1919, 1920, or 1947, 46, and they didn't have the internet, so they did the very best they could. You don't change those memorials, they'll stay. But we want to have something centrally located that if anybody wants to look it up, it's there. So we're hoping to do that pretty soon. There's lots more work on the World War II. We've identified some of the casualties. You can go in, if they were killed, you can go in and get their military record. But for the others that possibly are still alive, or even if they're dead, you can't touch them yet. But it's work, but it's fun work. And we're really looking for a couple of volunteers to come and help out with the World War II. It's rewarding work, but it's not a lot of investment of time. Looking at maybe 3 hours a week to go up to archives and do some research under Lynn's guidance. And I keep if I'm away for a couple of weeks, Lynn's going to retrain me when I go back, but it always seems to work out. We get lots done, but that we really like to get that done at some point in the future. I'm getting a little long in the tooth and probably not many years off my best before date. So before I head up to the sky. I'd like to really see that we're still working on that. We're getting it done. Some of the other partnerships, the farmers market, that's been fantastic. We share equipment with each other. They help us. And if you want to ever see a pro putting tents up or taking them down, come out and watch Susan Penny at work. Oh my gosh, she's amazing. She throws those tents up like nothing, better than the military could do it, really. But you know, it really, the market kind of takes us back to the old days where the communities, you know, came in to the market to get their goods for the next week and have a chance to chat with neighbors and catch up on the news of the week, because they didn't have the communication vehicles that we have today. Without a doubt, one of the best things that has happened at our branch is a partnership with the Waterdown Museum of Hope, which is part of the Waterdown District High School. This was the opening, photo taken at the opening of the Waterdown Museum of Hope. So what happens now, we have 12 permanent showcases. We also have a wall showcase with the Dryden exhibit I'll talk about in a second. And we've also picked up some miniature soldiers from the Catchpole collection, and we put them in a special cabinet, a smaller cabinet. The Dryden collection came about 2 years ago. A lady called and left a message with Valerie that she wanted a call to talk about some World War II artifacts. I called her back and she said, you know, I have some pretty neat stuff here, but I've called museums and legions and nobody's interested. So I said, well, are you around? She said, well, I'm from Victoria, but I'm in town and I could come into the Legion tomorrow. So she came in and Rob Flossman was there and we got talking to her and said, Judy, and then she's mentioned the word Dryden. And so Rob said, do you know Ken and Dave Dryden? Yeah, they're my brothers. Wow. So what happened, their father, Murray, he went to sign up at the outbreak of World War II and they said, we can't take you, you've got a heart murmur. So he joined the YMCA Auxiliary. He was a captain in the YMCA Auxiliary. And his job was setting up Maple Leaf recreation centers. And he set one up in Camp Borden. He went down to Deserano, the air training school there, set one up. Barryfield went over to Italy. And the last one was in Hilversum, Holland. And a lot of people thought, you know, the war ended in May and everybody came home. But that's not the way it worked. It was a point system. It depended how long the soldier had been overseas for, whether they were married, if they had children, if they were needed back on the farm to help out or in a business. So some of them didn't get home until well into 1946. So they've been fighting like heck up until May, beginning of May, and now they're idle. And idle soldiers, not a good situation. You want to keep them busy. They commandeered a German bus and they used to take them out in the countryside in Holland and Germany for excursions. They fed 700 troops on Christmas Day, 1945. And amazing story, the work that they did. At any rate, we now have a permanent display with artifacts from the Dryden family. It became a library after we pulled out, and one of the last librarians came over with her husband for the official opening in May, because Judy's built quite a good relationship with them. The other thing about Murray Dryden, him and his wife Margaret in 1970, they started the Sleeping Children Around the World Foundation. And to date, they've given out, the last number I saw was around 1.8 million kits. And when they go into a third world country, they employ the local people to put it all together. So they're creating employment. Every dollar donated goes to a kit. They have one paid employee in Toronto, but they owned Christmas tree farms. And when they were sold, the money went into a legacy fund and the employees paid from the legacy fund. So quite a story. But to go into the museum, have any of you been in? Has anybody not been in? If you haven't, please, next time it's open. But actually, you can come in anytime and see the exhibits. they're always open when the Legion is open. But you watch the young people, the projects they take on, the research they do, they just get so engaged and they're so enthusiastic. Quite often when I'm out doing poppies, someone around my age, some old, what else, will come up and say, you know what, the youth don't know anything about remembrance, they don't know anything about our military history. I let them babble on for a little while. And then once they get it off their chest, they said, oh, actually they do. Why don't you go over to the Museum of Hope is open here. By the way, here's a card with the opening hours, and just go and see how engaged our youth are. So it's amazing. It's been a real boost for our Legion. And just a little commercial. We always have lots of good stuff going on. You're always welcome to come into the Legion. You don't have to be a member. We do encourage people to take out a membership. It costs you about a subscription for a magazine a year. It's around $50, but you get a magazine for that 4 times a year, the Legion magazine. Along with that, there's opportunities to get discounts. You can go into Legions anywhere in the world and you'll be welcome. We have pub nights now, first Friday of each month. We've got a turkey roll coming up on December 7th, and all the profits from the turkey roll are going to go to local charities. And also, if you're looking for a place to hang your hat New Year's Eve, I think there's still a few tickets left. But we would encourage you, anytime, come into the Legion, you're always welcome. In fact, I heard for the 100th anniversary, they're looking at free membership for anybody, not only veterans, but for anyone. They do it for veterans now, their first year membership, but looking at trying to increase the numbers. One of our challenges is getting the younger veterans to join. They don't join anything. Even I know with our Military Police Association, to encourage them to join, it's like pulling hen's teeth. It's pretty tough. But what I always say to them is, at some point in the future, you may need some help. And you know what? If you go by yourself and take the government on, good luck. Nothing will happen. But if an organization can go forward and say, we represent 350,000 voters, do you want to listen to what we have to say? That gets politicians' attention, because it could cause them some issues the next time they want to get elected. I think really this saying is appropriate from a great man, Sir Winston Churchill. Too bad we don't have statesmen around today like him. The world would be a lot better place. The farther backward you can look, the farther forward you are likely to see. And that really says it all for the work that the Heritage Society does, and for the archives, making sure that people don't forget that important history. So Lynn, thank you so much for all your help putting together the information. And I put my credit to my graphics production IT expert, Oliver Card, my 14-year-old grandson.